there are other things that I want to get to. Namely, it is brutal right now if you're a Sixers fan. Why? The Sixers are a fucking disaster right now. And it got even worse over the weekend because the team kind of did the news dump that Embiid's going to be shut down for the season. And like on one hand, you might say to yourself, oh, that kind of sucks. Embiid no longer, being in play kind of hurts their chances of, making the playoffs, which is not going to happen. But Embiid gets shut down by the Sixers, and shit goes sideways almost immediately because Shams puts out a report that's like, casts a lot of doubt on the relationship between the player and the team. And so I want to go over really quickly first, Shams put out on the 28th. What day was that? Was that Thursday? Was that Friday? 3rd, 2nd, 1st, Friday. That Embiid was shut down for the rest of the season. But it got worse because Shams goes on TV and essentially tells you that oh, no, things are not ideal in Philadelphia right now between the player and the team and the treatment plan and all that. Stop me if you've heard this before, but apparently Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers aren't seeing exactly eye to eye about Embiid's injury and the entire healing process and the process to get him back on a court and hopefully playing back at MVP level, I guess, in the 2025-2026 season. Let's go over to Shams. So this is what Shams had to report a few days ago.
Malika, this all came to a head over the last couple of weeks, specifically when I'm told Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers owner Josh Harris about the state of his knee and about where the realization he's at with what's in the best interest of him, the organization, as far as the potential shutdown. Because remember, Josh Harris owes Joel Embiid up to $300 million over the next 5 seasons. So
why does he owe $300 million over the next 5 seasons? Oh, because of course Daryl Morey chose to give him a 3-year extension before he needed to a player who has been oft injured and a guy who it was kind of hard to justify giving that money to unless you thought you were going to have to trade him, that he was going to get unhappy. And maybe that was part of the calculus. But Embiid goes directly to Josh Harris. Let's keep going.
So the backdrop to all this is that over the last month, we've seen fundamental differences between Joel Embiid and the 76ers as far.
Oh, that's always a good sign. When you have fundamental differences between your oft injured MVP and the team, that's always a good thing. That's what we love here. Oh, yeah. It's never happened in Philadelphia before that a player in the organization don't see eye to eye about the treatment process and about how you get the guy back to being healthy. Oh, yeah, it's never happened here before. Certainly not with the Sixers. Oh, no. The Sixers certainly haven't had injury issues in the past that have led to friction between a player and an organization and also left the fans, mostly in a state of constant fucking limbo, wondering if the tickets they buy to go see the players are going to actually matter because the players probably somehow not going to end up in the lineup. Now, thankfully, Joel Embiid and the Sixers they've talked together and they said, we're not going to play you anymore this season, Joel. So now, if your great Aunt Gertrude buys you tickets to go watch this shitty Sixers team, you'll know, I get to go watch Tyrese Maxey, who we love. Jared McCain? No. Joel Embiid? No. Podcast P, who posts his podcast to help the team somehow make the playoffs? Debatable. Oh, that's exciting. Great Aunt Gertrude. Bad timing. Bad timing on those tickets, okay? Just punt it to next year. Okay. But we're not done yet.
Embiid believing that he needs a different treatment approach for this versus the 76ers feeling you play on it, get in better condition, and you could continue on this year. This has been a situation the 76ers have been dealing with all season, and they've managed the swelling in multiple different ways, including injections monthly, just to get him on the court. But here they are in lock.
See, I hate that. I'm going to come back there in a second, but I hate what he just said.
Step. This is all about getting Joel Embiid back on the court in the best sustainable way, and they are in lockstep about that.
Yeah, so this is a disaster. Please take a second and just realize what a disaster this is. Joel Embiid has been getting injections in his knee. Shams just said it. He's been getting injections in his knee monthly to try to get him on the court. The knee continues to swell up. Now, we've previously seen that the Sixers organization, that the Sixers doctors are shocked by the fact that this treatment plan hasn't worked and that the swelling has persisted the way that it has. So they're giving him injections in the knee. The knee continues to swell up when he does basketball-related activities. But they're just trying to get him back on the court. Why? It has effectively been a lost season for months. But they kept trying to get him back on the court, at which point he has never looked like himself. He's looked big. He's looked plodding. He's looked slow. He's looked disaffected, disinterested. It was a lost season. And we knew that going back to last summer when he played in the Olympics, he looked plodding and slow and at least somewhat disinterested. And he played a vital role against Serbia, but otherwise looked like a guy who just didn't really belong at the Olympics. And, you know, you had national media pundits starting to turn against the guy, and it wasn't pretty. And then, remember, beginning of the season, he's not playing, and this Sixers organization kept telling us that it was part of the plan, which never made sense. They have yet to make any sense of what the plan ever was, why the plan needed to be put into effect. No one seems to have any willingness to be honest or transparent about what has happened with Joel Embiid. And so what we end up finding out weeks ago, I think it was at the very beginning of February in the Hubie Brown retirement game, I think was the Ramona Shelbourne report that Embiid was probably going to have another surgery. We saw over the next couple of weeks Embiid essentially allude to the idea that he needs to have another surgery, while at the same time the Sixers say, oh, no, he doesn't need a surgery. Joel Embiid doesn't need a surgery, does he? No, love, he doesn't need a surgery. He's just got to keep working at rehabilitating that knee. And now we find out from Shams that Embiid went directly to the owner, jumped over the front office, went directly to the owner to say, yo, I don't like how this is working. I don't like how this is playing out. I don't agree with how these guys are trying to get me back on the court. Now, did Joel Embiid go to Josh Harris and say, like, what are we doing? We're not going anywhere. Playoffs aren't happening. You're going to lose the pick. Like, what are we doing? I can't imagine that was the content of the conversation. But could Joel Embiid have said, yo, why the fuck are we putting my long-term health here at risk, given how much money you owe me over the next 5 years? Why are we doing that to try to get me back on the court to, like, maybe have the chance to make a play-in? Why would we do that? It makes no sense. And now we find out, oh, everybody's in lockstep. Like, now Embiid and the Sixers are in lockstep after he talked to Harris. I'm sorry, I have a really hard time believing any of it. The only thing that I do know for certain is that this Sixers team won't make the playoffs. This Sixers team will hopefully get that top 6 protected pick and will be able to add another young piece to this roster. But holy shit, this is bad. It is really, really bad. And, like, here's the big question. What are they going to do with Embiid's knee? Because it seems like every conventional surgery and treatment isn't working. Do you run the risk of trying to do this, like, meniscus replacement surgery that's been thrown out there? There was the idea kind of posited about breaking the bone in his hip to try to realign the knee. Like, are they willing to try an experimental procedure or something that hasn't been done with a guy his size? And, like, are they willing to do that in the hopes that it does return him to form? Or are they going to continue to take what are essentially half measures? I don't know, but this is not a great development if you're a Sixers fan. The only way it's a great development is if you, one, wanted to see him shut down so you can have a better chance of getting that pick. And then two, if you're one of the people who are trying to sell themselves on the idea that you can apply for that medical retirement, which would take the money off the books. The Sixers would still owe him the money, but the money would come off the cap. And then you say, all right, we're removing this ultra uber max player from our books. And then you have Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, whoever the top 6 pick ends up being, and you try to, like, build from there. But, like, we all want to see Joel Embiid get back out there. So, like, I don't take it as a win if you even were able to apply for the medical retirement and just Joel Embiid never plays another game. That'd be a shame. Yeah, this isn't ideal. I'm going to go over to the comments, though, because there are a lot of people who also took exception to some of this. And, you know, it's kind of hard at this point to try to find, like, a level-headed response to any of it. The only thing that we do know is that Embiid's season is done. And in in the midst of all of this, there is more heat getting put on Daryl Morey. And so I really do want to throw over to Stephen A. Smith quick, because over the weekend, he's on a national show as always. He's on NBA Countdown. And he weighed in on Embiid getting ruled out, about what happened with Embiid going to Josh Harris, and about whether or not this has any impact on Daryl Morey's future with the team. So let's go over there, and then we'll go back out to the comments.
There are rumors that owner Josh Harris was very reluctant to sign Joel Embiid to this extension. And Daryl Morey was the one who said, we got to do it. If that's the truth, Daryl Morey is in a world of trouble. And I would remind everybody, Josh Harris doesn't only own an NBA team. He owns an NFL team. Why do I bring that up? Who's his partner? Who's one of his minority owners? Just somebody that happens to be a 5-time champion and the greatest point guard in the history of basketball. What you think? All he's doing is sitting there talking to him about the Commanders? You trying to tell me Josh Harris, a billionaire who purchased an NFL franchise for over $6 billion, has Magic Johnson sitting next to him, and they're going to ask him a question about basketball? Josh Harris has asked me about basketball. Oh. So there's no way he has Magic Johnson next to him and ain't asking him.
Oh, so Josh Harris is now asking for Stephen A. Smith's thoughts on basketball. Okay, very interesting. Now, the reason I bring all this up is because the rumor was circulating for a while. We talked about it when Bill Simmons brought it up on his podcast a month or so ago, that Bob Myers' name has been brought out there because of his involvement in the hiring process for the Commanders. He's out there. He's seemingly enjoying his time on ESPN, but could you envision a scenario where Josh Harris reaches back out to Bob Myers, replaces him, Daryl Morey, with him this offseason? It's possible. But man, it's tricky because Daryl Morey doesn't just have the unilateral ability to give Joel Embiid that 3-year max extension. He can't just do that on his own. He has to get the approval of ownership. Now, whether or not you want to believe that Josh Harris was reluctant or not, Josh Harris ultimately did give the thumbs up and sign the check, sign the contract. So is it scapegoating at this point to say that it was all Daryl Morey? I don't know. Maybe. But I really think Morey's in trouble. He has to be. Because none of this has worked out. Just the optics of giving Embiid the 3-year extension, and then he's played the fewest games that he's played in years and looks really bad in the process. Handed out a huge contract to Paul George that the Clippers were not willing to give him, which now looks very prescient, right? That's a problem. The optics of that are bad. And this team potentially could lose its draft pick this year, although thankfully, because the tank is back in order, it does appear they're going to get that pick. It's bad. It's not a great situation. And it's pretty easy to look at the guy who's kind of running the show and say, yeah, for better or worse, you got to go. It's time to move on.